general, we are present in 20 markets globally. Clearly, the home market is the US. Most of the big European markets we're present in. In Asia, we are in Japan and here in India. We're in Australia. We're in Brazil. So that's the scope there from a geography standpoint. And we actually want to offer shipping solutions in all markets, shipping solutions of some sort. Here, again, the composition will be slightly different country by country. Again, there are some differences as to what product and so on, but in general, I think the answer is we have a traditional sales and go-to-market structure based on field sales and phone sales. The web plays an increasingly important role there, and partners play an increasingly important role. In this field, partners both on the technology side and on the selling side, actually. And we're actively building up that portfolio of partners. Well, if we go back to the history of Pitney Bowes, actually our history was franking, mailing and franking machines. However, as we all know, mail is not a growing market, while shipping is a growing market. And as always, and I guess as every businessman, as every company, we are looking for other opportunities to grow. Shipping and e-commerce especially is a very attractive growth area, and therefore a number of years ago we've decided we actually put more focus on that. And meanwhile, I think it's fair to say our shipping business, if we look at the composition of Pitney Bowes, I guess 10 years ago or so it was more like 80% or 60-70% mailing related. If we add everything up there, probably even more. Today it's more like 50% mailing related and 50% is shipping related, in very rough measures. It looks very promising. So globally, the parcel growth rates are more than 10%, driven mostly by e-commerce. So the fact that all of us order more things online and then have them shipped to their homes. That is a global opportunity. Obviously, the US, our home market, is one of the biggest markets there, but also in the other markets in Europe and in Asia, that's a very promising market. It is so promising that actually the biggest investments that we have made over the last years are in the shipping area. We've made two major acquisitions in the last 4 years. There was one company called Nugistics in the US, both of them were in the US. Nugistics we acquired last year. That's a logistics company specialized on e-commerce and technology around that, mostly around returns. And then I think 3-4 years ago we acquired a company called Borderfree, also in the US, and it was more specialized in cross-border e-commerce. So those were the two biggest investments that we have made in the last years, and they were both in that area. Indian market is probably one of the stronger markets in terms of growth, right? As far as I know, 25% of the population here shop online, predicted to go up to 40% over the next years, and parcel growth is at around 30%. So that clearly is a big growth opportunity for the market as such, and certainly also for us. I'd like to talk about sort of Pitney Bowes in general there, and the question of what solution we bring to what market is always a question of what are the local circumstances, and we don't always know that. Right? If you look at it from a global perspective, one of the biggest things that we do is cross-border e-commerce. We're basically helping facilitate a shipment across borders. In many cases, the buyers and sellers do not understand the regulations for customs and tariffs. Shipping costs are big unknown, but also there are import and export restrictions. Certain products you cannot export from a country or import into another country. And all of these things we manage for our companies there. We also facilitate the shipping as such, where we have a network, for example, out of the US into 200 countries or so, where we have defined rate cards and we can actually ship things for other people. That's one opportunity. The next one that we have is something that we call shipping APIs. If you look at how most people or how e-commerce sellers actually ship. What they do is they don't write out the labels by hand, but they use some sort of software. And behind that software typically sits a web-based service that provides the rate information and the label information and so on. And we do that currently in the US for a number of carriers, where we make that information available here and then integrate into either shipping systems that big retailers use or into shipping platforms, marketplaces. That's the second one. Returns is a big element for us, especially in the US again. Returns is one of those things in e-commerce. Depending on what category we're talking about, sometimes returns ratios are over 50%. That is a very typical thing in e-commerce. It's the equivalent of trying something on in the shop. So it's natural that that happens. From a selling perspective, we find that a seamless returns process is key to the buyers actually taking a decision. Many people will not take the decision to buy if they can't be sure that they can return the goods safely and free of cost. So that's a big business for us here. And then we come to all sorts of shipping systems. We have solutions for multi-carrier shipments. Again, it's a very simple application. If many people use more than one carrier, like for example here in India, many people use a combination of carriers to ship into every area. And that sounds really simple. The moment you do that, however, first of all, somebody needs to take a decision for any given parcel, so which carrier do I give it to? And then at some point, maybe they want to track that parcel. So now they need to remember which carrier they gave it to. And that is all very nice if you have one parcel per week. If it's more, at some point you need to keep a log in what you have done there, and that's a lot easier if you do that through a system. Rate comparisons are the same thing here. So we actually provide people with the possibility to manage all of these carriers there. And another mostly or often overlooked solution is on the receiving side. So what I have found repeatedly is if you go into bigger offices, what happens there is that the employees, as all of us, order things online, and because they are never at home when the carriers want to deliver the parcel, they have them shipped to their office. And again, that's not very complicated. There's like 5 parcels coming in a day. If you have an office of 10,000 people and there's hundreds of parcels coming in, all of a sudden you need space. You need to track these parcels internally. You need to organize the delivery internally. You have a full operation around that. And we actually offer systems that can facilitate that and enable people to organize the whole delivery process and track where the parcels are. Different in different markets, obviously, yes, and different by segment, right? On the e-commerce side, the cross-border shipping side, I think there's some competition from the big carriers. However, we believe that we actually have a big advantage there. We have a certain size there, and the way our system works is actually with every shipment we get better because we collect the information and feed it back into our database, and there's a learning algorithm behind that, and we get better over time here. So scale actually really matters there, and we think we're pretty good there. Our returns network in the US is very good. And again, competition would be the carriers. On multi-carrier shipments, there are different competitors in different markets, obviously, and that's very much a local situation how that works out. But it's overall, I'm actually not so much concerned. I'm always concerned about competition, but not that much here because actually it's a growing market. And there is, in many cases, it's still a fragmented market. There's room to grow for everybody, and I think we're doing pretty well there. The future is bright for Pitney Bowes. Okay. Roadmap, again, I won't spill all of the secrets here about what we want to do. I think the implementation is, at this stage, is very much driven by local requirements. Just this week we announced a partnership in Australia with a shipping company there. And that's a pretty unique situation that we're following there. And even today we had discussions with a potential partner here. The roadmap will certainly be dictated by what does the local market look like? What do the bigger carriers offer? How can we adapt to them? What does the clients want, and so on? I think I can't give you a simple answer as in this is what we'll do across the world here, but it will be very much adapted to the local market there.